Greetings, goddesses. My name is Messiah Al-Mahdi, and what I teach is spiritual science and comparative religious studies. I also teach the origin, structure, and evolution of the universe and how that relates to us as Afrocentric people. I'm going to be answering a few questions that I've been given by a few of the goddesses, pretty much, who wanted to know certain information concerning the Bible. So, with spiritual science, first of all, what it is it is the study of the sources of religious knowledge. Um, for example, we teach that in order for a person to follow religion, or for those that do follow religion, you have to accept the fact that you base your life on stories, because the facts are the book is pretty much based on stories. Once when that is accepted, the first intelligent question is the religion that I follow the first time that these stories have been told? If you've done any research or have any knowledge of ancient societies, obviously you would come up with the answer, no, my religion is not the first time these stories have been told. So the next intelligent question would be, who is the first people to tell the story and what they mean by the story? Because until we get down to the source of the information and find out what they meant by the story, will never truly grasp and understand the relevance of the story and how it's applicable. Most times, religious people like to convince us that God wrote the Bible, which, even if you look in Genesis chapter 1, where it starts off by saying, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, the question is never asked who's talking, because that's actually speaking in third person. If God wrote the Bible, he would say, in the beginning, I created the heavens and the earth. Not in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And there's various different verses throughout the Bible that actually speaks that way. So the first question that I've been given is, what is creation? And so usually when I'm asked that question, I like to start it off by asking a question to get your minds kind of moving. So that you'll start to think from a certain perspective. The question I ask is, which one came first, creation or existence? And the reason why I'm stressing that is because in religion, it causes us to believe that creation means to bring something into existence from nothing. And in reality, there is no such thing as nothing. For example, if you look at the fact of a house that's made out of wood, the wood would have had to have already existed in order to make a house. If you look at a building that's made out of bricks, the bricks would have already had to exist in order to make the building. So therefore, we draw the conclusion that everything that exists in creation is nothing more than something that is brought into existence from something that have already existed. With this level of thinking, it allows us to draw the conclusion that existence predates creation, or existence comes before creation. So, once when that is accepted, then we can actually move forward to talking about, well, what is existence? By definition, existence is the actuality of things being, meaning the fact that we can detect something by our physical senses. Now, humans have been given two mechanisms to be able to experience or detect natural phenomena. One, our senses, and two, our mind. Our senses detect natural phenomena, objects and events, and our mind processes that. The way the mind actually processes it, it needs a language, because when you process objects or events, we label it. That's a tissue, that's crackers, that's food, that's my mother, or that's this particular object or this particular event. So with the mind processing the natural phenomena that our senses detect, there has to be an actual language to give us a reference point of identifying the particular objects or events that we're actually detecting. So existence is the actuality of the sense perception and the mind being able to detect and label something that vibrates at a speed that allows us to be able to label it and say, that's a tree, that's a house. So we deal with vibration first. What you must understand is that everything that exists vibrates. And what that means is that in order for us to be able to detect something by our physical senses, the moods of vibration, right, through a process called emanation, rubs the glands inside of our brain and converts that natural phenomena to electricity. In simple terms, our sense perception is stored in our mind as electricity. For example, when light hit the retina of our eyes, it causes electrical signals to be sent to the brain by neurological cells called neurons, and that converts that information or that natural phenomena or that object into an electrical signals, which electrical signals we know carries messages, pictures, and sounds, no different than radio waves, microwaves, so on and so forth. So in reality, electricity is the foundation of existence and sensory perception. Existence itself is nothing more than a substance that allows itself to manifest in different forms. For example, every object that exists is made out of the same particles, subatomic particles, protons, electrons, and neutrons. The only difference is the amount of protons, electrons, and neutrons, the speed that it vibrates, and the proximity. And we classify those three things as solid, liquid, and gas. We know that if it's a gas, then the proximity is more widespread. We know that the vibration is more faster. And we know that the protons, electrons, and neutrons are more numerous. The more closer to something solid or physical, which you call it in physics density, the slower the vibration is. So when you find a heavy object in nature, it's vibrating at a slow speed. When it vibrates very fast, extremely fast, it's considered a gas. And when it vibrates middle way, we call that a liquid. So therefore, existence is based on the vibration of subatomic particles that can be detected by the physical senses. Now, there are certain states of vibration that vibrate faster than our sense perception. And this is what in religion they're calling the actual spiritual world. What they're saying is that there is something that vibrates, namely subatomic particles, as it's taught in quantum physics, that vibrates at a speed that is not detectable by the physical senses. And the first thing that comes from that side of existence into existence, we call it hydrogen. If you look on the elemental chart, the periodical table of elements, and you look at the first element, the number one element, you'll find that the number one element is hydrogen. And you ask the question, well, why is hydrogen number one, right? It's not only number one because it's the first element, it also is the most simplistic atom because it only has one proton. But the reality of why it's number one on the periodical table of elements, because it is the first thing in vibration that leaving I'm going to use religious terms, the spiritual world of the unseen to the seen world that can be detected. And when we say speed of vibration, what we're saying is how fast it vibrates, right? How fast it vibrates is going to tell how dense or heavy or light as far as in weight it is. And so when we start to speak about existence on the other side of hydrogen, the side of hydrogen that is not detectable by the physical senses, what we're saying is that there is a plane of existence that things actually exist, and as it slows up in vibration, it becomes more dense and able to be perceived. So existence would be the actuality of those particles existing and being able to detect it. However, whether or not it's detected or not, it still exists. It still exists. For example, let's use the example of a radio. You can have a radio up very loud, you can have it up medium, or you could turn it all the way down. If the radio is still on, but you turn it down and you can't hear it, it still plays. It's still actually working. It's just the senses cannot detect it because the vibration is too low. This same example can be applied to existence. There is a state of existence that is so fast that it's beyond the comprehension of the human instruments, the senses, and the mind. That doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. It just means that we can't detect that level of vibration based on our sensory instruments and our mental processing. So when we start to ask the question, what is God? I'm going to translate that. What you're asking is, what is the lightest thing in vibration? Because the lightest thing in vibration is the first thing to exist. You understand what I'm saying? Meaning the thing that vibrates the fastest, that's the most undetectable, which they call that being subtle, is the first thing to exist. Now, because everything that's created is created from something that already existed, then that means only creation has a beginning and an ending, never existence. And I know that's hard to fathom for most people, but as I start to make these videos, I'll start to actually expound on, the living universe and how it had absolutely no beginning. Existence can't have a beginning. God can't have a beginning. What we've been fed in religion has allowed our minds to not be able to grasp and understand concepts of existence, being as though our minds is trapped in creation. And again, when we speak about creation, creation does not mean to bring into existence from nothing, because in reality, there is no such thing as nothing. Show me nothing. If a person tells you that, you tell them, okay, well, show me nothing. And how do you know it exists if it's nothing? Now, in the concept of physics, or I should say spiritual alchemy, they teach about a concept called nothingness. They're saying that nothingness is a state of existence that God created to actually bring things into existence. He needed a place to put it. So time, space, matter, energy, all of these things are relative concepts to being the foundation to facilitate the things that would come into existence and be. But there is no such thing as nothing. Everything that exists ultimately can be traced back to some type of substance. So then the question is, what substance is God? Because you can't say that God created all things, and we know and understand that all things are created of a substance, but God is independent of those substances. Because now we have to ask the question, well, where did he get it from? If God is not made of a substance, where did he get it from? And if they come and explain to you that, or try to justify, well, God is a spirit, then the question is, what is a spirit made of? Right? Because a spirit is matter. It has to be made up of something. Even if you go look up the definition, and I like to use the etymologies. I teach a lot of my students to go to the dictionaries and get the etymology of these words. Etymology is the study of the origin of words and their roots and the language that they actually come from. So you can get a better understanding of how words were chosen to represent certain concepts. But to stay true to the point, a spirit is matter. And when you look up the actual etymology of the word spirit, coming from the Latin word spiritus, it means breath, breathe, blow, or air, right? So then you say, well, if it's breath, breathe, or to blow, or air, air is another word for gases. And we know we need gases to actually inhale to be able to facilitate the respiration processes. Not only do we need air to facilitate the respiration processes, but we know that gases is a substance, right? And that it's an actual physical thing. So even if you was to say God is a substance, by definition of the word spirit and by etymology of the word spirit, spiritus, it's still actually, pinpointing that a spirit is actually something.